girls and boys. Today we're going to read Chrysanthemum by Kevin Henkes. Chrysanthemum is the name of a flower. It's also this little mouse's name. This book is great with activities with our names. Let's count how many letters she has in her name. It's so long. Count with me. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13. She has 13 letters in her name. Only one is uppercase. All the rest are lowercase. Some names are very long. Some names are short. Some names have sight words hiding in them. I'm going to frame it with my fingers. Look what word is hiding in her name. It's the word Anne. A-N. Anne. Here's another sight word that's hiding in her name. The. T-H-E. The. If your name doesn't have any sight words hiding in it, that's okay. If your name is short, that's okay. If your name is long, that's okay. Your name is special. Your mom and dad picked it out just for you. Let's find out more about Chrysanthemum and how she likes her name. What do you see? I see Chrysanthemum as a baby. The day she was born was the happiest day in her parents' lives. She's perfect, said her mother. Absolutely, said her father. And she was. She was absolutely perfect. Her name must be everything she is, said her mother. Her name must be absolutely perfect, said her father. And it was. Chrysanthemum. Her parents named her Chrysanthemum. Chrysanthemum grew and grew and grew. And when she was old enough to appreciate it, Chrysanthemum loved her name. I see her growing. Look. First, she was a baby. She couldn't even really crawl or eat her own food. But she learned to walk and slide and ride a bike and take a bath. She's learning to read and sit quietly and look at books. Oh, look at that. She's growing so tall. And she says, I love my name. The pictures always go with the words. Whatever is in the words, the picture will give us more information. So it talks about how she grew and grew and grew. And when she was old enough to appreciate it, that means really, really be glad about it and know about it. Chrysanthemum loved her name. She loved the way it sounded when her mother woke her up. She loved the way it sounded when her father called her for dinner. And she loved the way it sounded when she whispered it to herself in the bathroom mirror. See how the pictures go with what the words say? Chrysanthemum, chrysanthemum, chrysanthemum. Chrysanthemum loved the way her name looked when it was written with ink on an envelope. She loved the way it looked when it was written with icing on her birthday cake. And she loved the way it looked when she wrote it herself with her fat orange crayon. Chrysanthemum, chrysanthemum, chrysanthemum. Chrysanthemum thought her name was absolutely perfect. And then she started school. On the first day, Chrysanthemum wore her sunniest dress and her brightest smile. She ran all the way. "Hooray!" said Chrysanthemum. "School!" But when Mrs. Chud took roll call, that means attendance, she says everybody's name and she finds out who's there that day. Everyone giggled upon hearing Chrysanthemum's name. So Mrs. Chud said, "Dawn, Eve, Lois, Al, Les, Kay, Max, Sue, Bill, Pat, Tom, Sam, Ken, Joe, Rita, Victoria, Chrysanthemum." Her name is longer than everybody else's. "It's so long," said Joe. "It scarcely fits on your name tag," said Rita, pointing. "I'm named after my grandmother," said Victoria. "You're named after a flower." Chrysanthemum wilted. Let's look at what that means. She wilted. Is she standing tall and proud anymore? No. Victoria and Rita and Joe made her feel very bad about her name. See how they're pointing? See how she looks sad? Chrysanthemum wilted. She did not think her name was absolutely perfect. She thought it was absolutely dreadful. Dreadful means terrible. The rest of the day was not much better. During nap time, Victoria raised her hand and informed Mrs. Chud that Chrysanthemum's name was spelled with 13 letters. "That's exactly half as many letters as there are in the entire alphabet," Victoria explained. "Thank you for sharing that with us, Victoria," said Mrs. Chud. "Now put your head down." Victoria should not be worrying about everybody else. Victoria needs to worry about herself. The other children are doing exactly what they're supposed to. They're doing their quiet rest. Victoria needs to be quietly resting too. "If I had a name like yours, I'd change it," Victoria said as the students lined up to go home. "I wish I could," thought Chrysanthemum miserably. Miserably means sadly. She doesn't want her name anymore. Victoria has made her feel so bad about her name, she doesn't even like it anymore. That was not very nice of Victoria. "Welcome home," said her mother. "Welcome home," said her father. "School is no place for me," said Chrysanthemum. "My name is too long. It scarcely fits on my name tag. And I'm named after a flower." Oh, poor Chrysanthemum. But she shouldn't be listening to Victoria. She needs to remember that her name was picked by her mom and dad, and it's special just like her. We don't need to worry about what other people say. "Oh, pish," said her mother. "Your name is beautiful." "And precious and priceless and fascinating and winsome," said her father. "It's everything you are," said her mother. "Absolutely perfect," said her father. Chrysanthemum felt much better after her favorite dinner, macaroni and cheese with ketchup, and an evening filled with hugs and kisses and parcheesi. That's a board game. That night, Chrysanthemum dreamed that her name was Jane. It was an extremely pleasant dream. That means it was a good dream. The next morning, Chrysanthemum wore her most comfortable jumper. She walked to school as slowly as she could. She dragged her feet in the dirt. "Chrysanthemum, chrysanthemum, chrysanthemum," she wrote. So that's different than how she went to school yesterday. Yesterday she wore her sunniest dress, that bright yellow one, and she ran all the way to school. This time she wore her most comfortable jumper and walked as slowly as she could. Why do you think she did that? You're right. She's not feeling good about going to school anymore. Why? Yeah. Those other girls were not being nice to her, and she paid them too much attention. She shouldn't be listening to them and letting them make her feel bad. She even looks like a flower, said Victoria as Chrysanthemum entered the playground. Let's pick her, said Rita, pointing. Let's smell her, said Joe. Are they making good choices? No, they are not being good friends. That was not nice. Chrysanthemum wilted. She did not think her name was absolutely perfect. She thought it was absolutely dreadful. Do you remember what dreadful means? Terrible. Yucky. The rest of the day was not much better. During nap time, Victoria raised her hand and said, "A chrysanthemum is a flower. It lives in a garden with worms and other dirty things." "Thank you for sharing that with us, Victoria," said Mrs. Chudd. "Now put your head down." Once again, Victoria needs to be worrying about herself and doing the right thing. "I just cannot believe your name," Victoria said as the students lined up to go home. "Neither can I," thought Chrysanthemum miserably. Do you remember what miserably means? Sadly. She's so sad. "Welcome home," said her mother. "Welcome home," said her father. "School is no place for me," said Chrysanthemum. "They said I even look like a flower. They pretended to pick me and smell me." "Oh, pish," said her mother. "They're just jealous." "And envious and begrudging and discontented and jaundiced," said her father. "And who wouldn't be jealous of a name like yours?" said her mother. "After all, it's absolutely perfect," said her father. Chrysanthemum felt a trifle better after her favorite dessert, chocolate cake with buttercream frosting, and another evening filled with hugs and kisses and parcheesi. That night, Chrysanthemum dreamed that she really was a chrysanthemum. She sprouted leaves and petals. Victoria picked her and plucked the leaves and petals off one by one until there was nothing left but a scrawny stem. It was the worst nightmare of Chrysanthemum's life. Chrysanthemum wore her outfit with the 7 pockets the next morning. She loaded the pockets with her most prized possessions and her good luck charms. A possession is something you own. So she put in her pockets her favorite things. I know why she did it. She was trying to make herself feel better. But we don't bring anything with us to school except our school supplies. Chrysanthemum took the longest route possible to school. She stopped and stared at each and every flower. So once again, she's not rushing to school. She's dawdling. She doesn't want to go. "Chrysanthemum, chrysanthemum, chrysanthemum," the flowers seemed to tell her. That morning, the students were introduced to Mrs. Twinkle, the music teacher. Her voice was like something out of a dream, as was everything else about her. The students were speechless. They thought Mrs. Twinkle was an indescribable wonder. They went out of their way to make a nice impression. So they just love their music teacher. She has a wonderful voice, and they just really, really like her, and they want her to like them too. Mrs. Twinkle led the students in scales. That means that she led them in singing. Then she assigned roles for the class musical. Rita was chosen as the spiffy butterfly princess. Joe was chosen as the all-important pixie messenger, and Chrysanthemum was chosen as a daisy. Victoria was the very queen. Chrysanthemum's a daisy, chrysanthemum's a daisy. Joe, Rita, and Victoria chanted, thinking it was wildly funny. Was it? No. Anything that makes one of our friends feel sad can't be funny. Chrysanthemum wilted. She did not think her name was absolutely perfect. She thought it was absolutely dreadful. Do you remember what dreadful means? Terrible, yucky. What's so humorous? Asked Mrs. Twinkle. That means funny. Humorous means funny. What's so humorous? Asked Mrs. Twinkle. Chrysanthemum, was the answer. Her name is so long, said Joe. It scarcely fits on her name tag, said Rita, pointing. I'm named after my grandmother, said Victoria. She's named after a flower. Are they making good choices? No, they're not. Making a classmate feel bad is not a good choice. And making somebody else feel bad will not make other people like you more. I know they really wanted Mrs. Twinkle to like them. My name is long, said Mrs. Twinkle. It is, said Joe. My name would scarcely fit on a name tag, said Mrs. Twinkle. It would, said Rita, pointing. And, said Mrs. Twinkle, I'm named after a flower, too. You are, said Victoria. Oh, so she is a lot like Chrysanthemum. Mrs. Twinkle is a lot like Chrysanthemum. And all the things that Victoria and Joe and Rita have been making fun of are all things that would apply to Mrs. Twinkle's name. Yes, said Mrs. Twinkle, my name is Delphinium, Delphinium Twinkle, and if my baby is a girl, I'm considering Chrysanthemum as a name. I think it's absolutely perfect. See, Mrs. Twinkle has a baby in her belly, and when her baby is born, she might give her baby the name Chrysanthemum. She said she thinks it's absolutely perfect. Well, this Chrysanthemum could scarcely believe her ears. She blushed. She beamed. She bloomed. Chrysanthemum, chrysanthemum, chrysanthemum. Beaming means smiling. Blooming means she's not wilting anymore. She's standing up straight and tall and proud. She knows she is a good person and that she can do everything anybody else can. Joe, Rita, and Victoria looked at Chrysanthemum longingly. It means they wanted to be like her. They wanted to have a nice long flower name just like her. Call me Marigold, said Joe. I'm Carnation, said Rita, pointing. My name is Lily of the Valley, said Victoria. Chrysanthemum did not think her name was absolutely perfect. She knew it. Overall, the class musical was a huge success. Chrysanthemum was absolutely perfect as a daisy. Victoria made the only mistake. She completely forgot her lines as the dainty fairy queen. Chrysanthemum thought it was wildly funny, and she giggled throughout the entire dance of the flowers. Eventually, Mrs. Twinkle gave birth to a healthy baby girl, and of course, she named her Chrysanthemum. What's your name? How many letters are in it? Do you know? If you don't know how many letters are in your name, you should have an adult write it down, and you can count the letters. Then say the letters. Then you can cut them apart and put them in the right order. It's always good to play names with the letters in your name, and that way it makes it more fun. You should know how to write your name with just one uppercase letter and putting all the letters in the right order. It's great practice for getting ready for kindergarten. Thank you for helping me read this book, Chrysanthemum.